The depiction of space combat in Star Wars is one of the franchise's most visually striking and thematically charged elements, showcasing both the grandeur of technological warfare and the moral struggles of its characters. Central to this universe are colossal ships such as the Death Star, Star Destroyers, Super Star Destroyers, and the Eclipse. These vessels represent not just weapons of war, but also instruments of power, fear, and ideological dominance. Each of these creations is a testament to the technological ambition and philosophical outlook of the Empire and its successors, as well as their narrative importance within the saga. The Death Star is arguably the most iconic symbol of Imperial might. Its sheer scale and destructive power make it not just a tool of war but a political statement. Capable of obliterating entire planets with its super laser, the Death Star is the epitome of terror as a weapon. The philosophical underpinnings of its use are rooted in the doctrine of fear. Tarkin himself declares that fear of its power will keep systems in line. This approach reveals a critical flaw in the Empire's strategy: reliance on fear over loyalty. The Death Star's vulnerability, famously exploited by the Rebel Alliance in both A New Hope and Return of the Jedi, highlights this weakness. Its vast size makes it difficult to defend, and the overconfidence of its designers, particularly in leaving exploitable weaknesses, serves as a reminder that technological superiority alone is insufficient for total dominance. The design of the Death Star is emblematic of the Empire's penchant for excess. Its ability to destroy a planet in a single shot is far beyond what is necessary to achieve military objectives, making it less a weapon of practical use and more a symbol of the Empire's hubris. The philosophical implications of such a weapon resonate deeply. It is not merely a tool for conquest but a representation of the Empire's willingness to erase entire worlds to maintain control. This overreach becomes a metaphor for the broader failures of the Empire, a regime so focused on projecting power that it neglects the underlying vulnerabilities inherent in its oppressive system. Star Destroyers, on the other hand, offer a more nuanced perspective on Imperial strategy. As the backbone of the Imperial Navy, these wedge-shaped vessels embody efficiency and intimidation. Their design maximizes firepower and troop deployment capabilities, while projecting a menacing silhouette that reinforces the Empire's dominance. Unlike the Death Star, Star Destroyers are highly versatile, capable of serving as command centers, carriers, and offensive platforms. However, their reliance on overwhelming firepower and massed formations reflects the Empire's strategic doctrine: sheer brute force over nuanced tactics. The limitations of Star Destroyers become apparent in their engagements with the Rebel Alliance. Despite their firepower, their size and lack of agility make them vulnerable to smaller, more maneuverable craft like X-Wings and Y-Wings. This is particularly evident in the Battle of Endor, where the coordinated efforts of Rebel starfighters expose the weaknesses of the Imperial fleet's reliance on centralized power structures. The hierarchical command of Star Destroyers, exemplified by the need to destroy specific flagships to disrupt the fleet, underscores the rigidity of the Imperial war machine. Their inability to adapt to the more dynamic and decentralized tactics of the rebels highlights a strategic inflexibility that ultimately contributes to the Empire's downfall. Super Star Destroyers, such as the Executor, take the concept of the Star Destroyer to its logical extreme. These colossal ships are symbols of excess, embodying the Empire's philosophy of overwhelming power. Stretching kilometers in length, Super Star Destroyers serve as mobile fortresses, capable of obliterating fleets and intimidating entire star systems into submission. The Executor, as Darth Vader's flagship, serves a dual purpose. It is both a military asset and a projection of the Sith Lord's personal power. Its vast scale and firepower make it a formidable force on the battlefield. But like the Death Star, it suffers from overconfidence and inherent vulnerabilities. The Executor's destruction during the Battle of Endor serves as a critical turning point in the galactic civil war, both symbolically and strategically. Its loss highlights the dangers of over-reliance on centralized symbols of power. The Rebels' ability to exploit its vulnerabilities in this case, a collision with the Death Star and its chain reaction destruction, demonstrates once again that the Empire's technological superiority is insufficient to guarantee victory against a more adaptable and determined foe. Moreover, the collapse of the Executor serves as a metaphor for the Empire itself. an imposing and seemingly invincible force undone by its own weaknesses. The Eclipse, introduced in the Star Wars expanded universe, represents the apex of the Empire's obsession with planet-killing technology. Combining the destructive capabilities of the Death Star with the mobility of a Star Destroyer, the Eclipse is a weapon of unmatched potential. Its superlaser, while not as powerful as the Death Star's, is capable of destroying large portions of planetary surfaces and rendering worlds uninhabitable. This mobile planet cracker underscores the evolution of Imperial strategy in the aftermath of the Death Star's destruction. The Empire, recognizing the vulnerability of stationary weapons like the Death Star, seeks to create a more versatile tool of oppression. The Eclipse's design and deployment reveal a shift in the Empire's strategy toward decentralization and mobility. Unlike the Death Star, the Eclipse is capable of engaging in fleet battles while maintaining its planet-destroying capabilities, making it a more practical weapon of war. However, its existence raises critical questions about the moral and strategic limits of such weapons. By doubling down on the philosophy of destruction as a means of control, the Empire inadvertently underscores its inability to understand the dynamics of rebellion and resistance. The Eclipse, like its predecessors, becomes a symbol of the Empire's overreach, a weapon so devastating that its mere existence galvanizes opposition. In analyzing these vessels collectively, a pattern emerges. The Empire's reliance on technological terror and overwhelming firepower is both its greatest strength and its Achilles heel. The Death Star, Star Destroyers, Super Star Destroyers, and the Eclipse all embody the Empire's ethos of control through fear and domination. However, their failures reveal the inherent flaws in this philosophy. By investing so heavily in symbols of power, the Empire neglects the human and strategic elements of warfare. The Rebel Alliance, by contrast, demonstrates the effectiveness of adaptability, resourcefulness, and a decentralized command structure. This dichotomy is central to the thematic conflict of Star Wars. The Empire's ships are imposing, awe-inspiring, and seemingly invincible, but they are also rigid, overconfident, and prone to exploitation by more agile and creative opponents. This narrative tension underscores the broader themes of the saga: the triumph of the underdog, the resilience of hope, and the ultimate futility of tyranny. The destruction of these massive vessels, whether through the bravery of rebel pilots or the strategic ingenuity of alliance leaders, serves as a reminder that even the most powerful regimes can be brought low by those who refuse to submit. In conclusion, the space combat of Star Wars is not just a spectacle of lasers and explosions, but a reflection of the ideological struggle at the heart of the saga. The Empire's reliance on weapons like the Death Star, Star Destroyers, Super Star Destroyers, and the Eclipse reveals a deep-seated belief in the power of fear and destruction. Yet, the repeated failures of these weapons highlight the limitations of such an approach. The Rebel Alliance's ability to exploit these weaknesses speaks to the enduring power of ingenuity, courage, and resilience. In the end, the might of these massive ships serves not to guarantee the Empire's victory but to underscore its ultimate vulnerability. The analysis of Star Wars space combat extends beyond the sheer scale of the vessels and their destructive capabilities to their narrative and symbolic roles within the saga. These massive ships, such as the Death Star, Star Destroyers, Super Star Destroyers, and the Eclipse, are not merely tools of war but also representations of the overarching themes of the series. Their presence on the battlefield shapes the political, philosophical, and emotional arcs of the story, with the dynamics of space combat playing a critical role in defining the moral landscapes of both the Galactic Empire and the Rebel Alliance. The Death Star's repeated failures serve as more than just tactical losses for the Empire. They symbolize the hubris of a regime that equates technological dominance with unassailable power. Its destruction in A New Hope becomes a rallying cry for the rebellion and a clear narrative statement. No system, no matter how advanced or imposing, is immune to resistance. The trench run and Luke Skywalker's climactic torpedo shot encapsulate the idea that the smallest act of defiance, when aligned with hope and purpose, can topple even the most overwhelming force. This dynamic plays out again in Return of the Jedi, where the second Death Star embodies the Empire's attempt to learn from its mistakes while doubling down on the same flawed philosophy. The second iteration is more fortified, constructed with lessons from its predecessor in mind, yet it is still incomplete and ultimately vulnerable. Its dependence on a shield generator, placed on the forest moon of Ender, underscores the Empire's blind spots. While the station is operational, its reliance on external support systems is emblematic of the Empire's overconfidence and inability to adapt to asymmetrical warfare. The Rebel Alliance's ability to infiltrate and disable these systems highlights their superior adaptability and ingenuity, contrasting with the Empire's rigid reliance on brute strength. Star Destroyers, while not as grandiose as the Death Star, serve a more practical and nuanced role in the narrative of space combat. These ships, from the standard Imperial class to the Super Star Destroyer variants, are the backbone of the Empire's military-industrial complex. They project power across the galaxy, acting as both tools of conquest and symbols of oppression. Their design reflects a philosophy of intimidation. The dagger-like shape and overwhelming firepower make them immediately recognizable as instruments of destruction. The effectiveness of Star Destroyers lies in their ability to serve multiple roles: command centers, carriers, and battleships within the Imperial fleet. Yet their size and firepower also limit them in ways that become apparent during engagements with Rebel forces. The Rebel fleet, composed of smaller, more agile ships, frequently exploits the weaknesses of these behemoths, as seen in the climactic space battles of the series. These engagements highlight the tactical disadvantages of relying on centralized, monolithic power. Star Destroyers may dominate in direct confrontations, but they struggle against the guerrilla tactics and resourcefulness of the Rebel Alliance. The Super Star Destroyers, such as the Executor, elevate this dynamic to an even more pronounced scale. These ships are massive in both physical size and symbolic significance, representing the peak of the Empire's hubristic ambition. The Executor, as Darth Vader's flagship, is a clear extension of his character. Imposing, uncompromising, and terrifying, its destruction at Ender is a profound narrative moment, symbolizing not just the tactical loss of a key asset, but also the crumbling of the Empire's illusion of invincibility. The Executor's collision with the Death Star, brought about by the chaos of the battle, is emblematic of the Empire's inability to control the very forces it seeks to dominate. The Eclipse, while less prominent in the core films, expands on these ideas within the Star Wars expanded universe. As a mobile planet killer, it combines the strategic versatility of a Star Destroyer with the destructive power of the Death Star. The Eclipse represents a logical evolution of Imperial doctrine. Recognizing the vulnerabilities of static superweapons like the Death Star, the Empire seeks to create a more flexible and survivable platform for its most destructive capabilities. However, this shift also reflects an escalation of the Empire's moral descent. The Eclipse's ability to annihilate planetary surfaces with precision demonstrates a refined but equally horrifying commitment to using destruction as a tool of subjugation. The Eclipse's introduction raises critical questions about the nature of power and its limitations. While it offers the Empire new strategic possibilities, it also highlights the diminishing returns of reliance on overwhelming firepower. The existence of the Eclipse only serves to deepen the resolve of those who oppose the Empire. Just as the Death Star galvanized the rebellion, the Eclipse becomes a rallying point for resistance, proving that the Empire's focus on fear and destruction ultimately alienates rather than subdues. The narrative significance of these vessels is complemented by their role in shaping the broader themes of Star Wars. The Empire's reliance on massive, imposing weapons reflects its fundamentally flawed philosophy. The belief that fear can replace loyalty and that overwhelming force is a substitute for understanding and governance. The repeated failures of these weapons underscore the limitations of this approach, revealing that true power lies not in technological dominance but in the ability to inspire and unite. In contrast, the Rebel Alliance's approach to space combat emphasizes adaptability, creativity, and the strength of collective action. Rebel ships, while often outmatched in terms of size and firepower, excel in maneuverability and strategic innovation. This contrast is vividly portrayed in battles such as those at Yavin, Hoth, and Ender, where the Rebels' resourcefulness and willingness to take risks lead to victories against seemingly insurmountable odds. The destruction of the Empire's superweapons and capital ships also serves a symbolic purpose within the saga. Each loss represents a chipping away at the facade of Imperial invulnerability, reinforcing the idea that even the most oppressive regimes can be overcome through courage and determination. These moments are not just tactical victories, but also moral triumphs, affirming the resilience of hope in the face of tyranny. In summation, the space combat of Star Wars, as exemplified by the Death Star, Star Destroyers, Superstar Destroyers, and the Eclipse, is a critical lens through which the saga explores themes of power, oppression, and resistance. These vessels, while awe-inspiring in their design and destructive capabilities, ultimately reveal the inherent weaknesses of an ideology rooted in fear and domination. The Rebel Alliance's ability to overcome these seemingly insurmountable forces underscores the enduring power of hope, ingenuity, and the collective will to resist oppression. Through its depiction of space combat, Star Wars not only delivers thrilling action, but also conveys profound truths about the nature of power and the human spirit.